Well, thank you for having me. Let me clarify who I am. Yes, I am a member of the League of Women Voters, and the pros and cons booklet that I gave you is one of our education pieces that we put out for every election to help voters really understand the ballot. And in California, certainly, I mean, it's practically a phone book of propositions this year, and I know that it's pretty daunting to get through that and understand what's in there. We actually form a study committee as soon as we know that the initiatives are going to be on the ballot, and so we're talking about 15 people working pretty much full time to get these pros and cons and all of this information out. And still there's always a little more. So one of the things that the League is doing actually this year, as soon as we finish this election, is we have a study group on the whole process of initiatives in California. Because raise your hand if you think it's kind of a frustrating process. Raise your hand if you're wondering if really this is the best kind of government. Okay, so we have some issues with that, and we certainly need to do some work in that, but we're going to work on these particular propositions right now. On your pros and cons, this little piece here, how to evaluate ballot propositions, I would suggest that you save that and maybe laminate it. This is really a useful tool. When you look at a proposition, you want to see what is really the goal, not what it's named, but what really is the goal. Who are the sponsors? Who are the opponents? Who's put money into it? And we actually have a website for you to look at here to see whose money is in this proposition, because usually that tells you a lot. Is the measure written well? Now, one of the things that you will always see opponents say about a proposition they don't like, it's not well written. That's kind of, if you have nothing else to say, it's not well written. But sometimes it really isn't well written. Does it have its own revenue source? So if it's going to cost money, where does that money come from? And some of the other things are, is it a constitutional amendment or a statute? So is it a law that can be amended and changed as we understand, well, maybe we need to do this a little differently, or if it's a constitutional amendment, in order to change it at all, you have to bring it back for a vote of the people, which is expensive, slow, probably not going to happen. Okay. The California Constitution, let me just give you a visual here. Here's the U.S. Constitution. We've been in business as a country quite some time, okay? Here's the California Constitution in relationship, because we're adding and adding and adding and adding. So when you're looking at something, does this make sense as a constitutional amendment, and how will it fit with all the other constitutional amendments that are on there? Now I actually see my colleague, Ms. Plambeck here, who is here to talk about Proposition 32? 37. You're going to talk on 30. Okay, then never mind. I'll work on the things I'm working on, and then you can come up. Okay. So which propositions I've been asked to talk about? 30, 32, 34, and 36. Not because they're even numbered, but because that seemed to be the issues that you guys really wanted to hear about. If, as we get towards the end and there's time and you have questions, I'm happy to answer questions on the other propositions as well. So let's talk about Proposition 32 first. Maybe because I have the most passion about it, maybe because it might be the most important proposition on this whole ballot. I don't know, I'm sure you followed in some other states as we're seeing different states find different ways of trying to silence working people. But this is something really important to understand about Proposition 32. I want to read you the wording. Hold on a second. Let's see. Okay, so Proposition 32 prohibits unions from using payroll deducted funds for political purposes. Applies the same use prohibition to payroll deductions, if any, by corporations or government contractors. Prohibits union and corporate contribution to candidates and their committees. Prohibits government contractor contributions to elected officers or their committee. So, I know you've seen some advertisements for this proposition already. You've probably also seen the League of Women Voters is running an ad against this proposition. The League of Women Voters takes positions on propositions often, doesn't take this strong of a stand very often at all. Okay, this is really a very unusual situation in which this proposition is being sold as get special interest money out of politics. Now that sounds really good. That sounds like, well, we want to do that. The money that put this up, that put it on the ballot, and that is supporting this is hedge fund managers, political action committees, billionaires, private investors, and this bill exempts them from its own restrictions. Now that's really the key here. So unions take payroll deductions and they use that money for political action. That's true. That's absolutely true. Whether you belong to a union or not, you need to understand. Absolutely. The bill would say that that cannot be done. Now, if union members want to, organize on their own or kick in some money or have a bake sale, well, they could do that. Okay, but that might not be that effective. So and if you've looked at, I don't know if you saw Michael Hiltzick's piece in the LA Times on this, but his position on it, and a great many newspapers have taken the position, this is a fraud. This is not what it appears to be. So I really want to walk you through this, but this is one that I have to tell you I feel really strongly about. So, and in fact, as I'm driving here today, there was a report on NPR about another nonprofit organization in Arizona which had donated $10 million to support Proposition 32 and to oppose Proposition 30 that we'll talk about in a minute, and we don't know who the donors are. And we demand to know who the donors are. Where did this $10 million from Arizona come from? So this is the kind of thing that is at issue here. Okay, so let me just tell you. Okay, so just in terms of donors, for it, Charles Munger, who you may also know as a colleague of Warren Buffett, he himself put in $23 million to pass this proposition. There are 25 people listed here. There are individual millionaires and billionaires putting in, at minimum, $50,000 apiece. There are also political action groups that are connected with the Koch brothers, with Karl Rove. So that's the kind of money that's going into passing this. And who is against it? Unions, yes, unions, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
I don't see a single individual person that's going against it. California teachers, SEIU, California professional firefighters, California nurses, California faculty, peace officers, California statewide law enforcement, building trades, transportation, domestic workers, American physicians. These are groups who get their voice through their union. Okay, so that's really the pro and the con about this. There are people who feel angry about maybe the teachers union has too much power. Maybe the public employees union has too much power. Even the newspapers that acknowledge that, like the Sacramento Bee, say, yes, sometimes we're angry about that, but this is not the way to fix it. So I would entertain any specific questions on this one, or if you already sort of have, yeah, you're good. Okay, good deal. Okay, so let's go over proposition. Hold on.